Welcome everybody to Spirituality Adventures. This is a non-judgmental place to explore spirituality, and we're so glad you're here. This is a viewer and listener supported podcast, so we greatly appreciate your support. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, share, and subscribe to any of the social media content platforms that you're using. And then if you go to our website, spiritualityadventures.com, you can make a one-time donation, or with a monthly subscription, you'll gain access to our bonus content. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome everybody to Spirituality Adventures. We're glad that you're here, and we're excited today. We are interviewing Kris Rochelle.
Yes.
Kris, thanks for joining us on Spirituality Adventures.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people have me places. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, Kris is a musician, and that's the main thing that I was getting you on here for, was your musical creativity career. But there's so many other things now that I've discovered that I have intersections with you on, that I'm excited to talk about this.
I'm so much more.
That's right. Yeah. But let's just start by getting a little bit of background so our audience can know, like, where you grew up,
Sure.
where you're from. Give us a little bit of your family background.
Yeah. Okay. So I grew up in, sorry, I'm laughing. I'm thinking of, like, I do a lot of assessments on people.
Yeah.
Like biopsychosocial, and I'm like, maybe I could just go through the assessment form.
Right. We could figure out what kind of what kind of danger lurks ahead in your future. Yeah.
I grew up.
Do an ACEs test on you. How's that?
Jeez, yeah.
It's a trauma assessment, by the way, for those who don't know. Yeah.
Adverse childhood experiences. Mm-hmm. They're actually, what's cool about the ACEs is they're doing another one for the community, adverse community experiences. So,
and what's so doing not only your family context, but your community context?
Your community, yeah.
Okay.
So, like, whether there's, like, generational poverty or community violence, things like that. And, like, because those adverse experiences for the community really trickle down into every individual. And so that has, like, a trauma response to those, and, increasing amygdala size and fear response, the kind of fight, flight, freeze.
So this is a real deal. Your amygdala can be larger than normal. And
absolutely.
So I think I have one of those.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
I think because I couldn't sleep at night.
Yeah.
My brain just runs.
So when you experience, like, continued stressors that are sort of beyond your control, it has an effect on the organs, which are, your brain is an organ.
But I've even heard that even when you're in the womb,
sure,
if your mom goes through enormous amounts of stress during that pregnancy, that it can affect your amygdala size as well. I don't know.
I don't know
if
I
haven't studied that research out, but I've actually read it, and then you just mentioned that, and so I was thinking, wow.
And obviously it's very complex. There's a lot of things that contribute to that, which is why the ACEs scores, or the ACEs tests, have been, like, really, I think, enlightening to a lot of people, because they're showing that, like, it's complex. It's not just a person. It's really a person and environment. It's approaching things from a more holistic perspective in kind of every caring profession, whether it's therapy, kind of connection to care, or medical, psychiatric. Yeah. It's really important to approach each of those things from a
one of my good friends is Dr. Michelle Kayla, and she worked in children's pediatrics, Dr. Gal, for decades in Children's Mercy, and has also still worked heavily with childhood trauma and all that kind of stuff. And anyway, so tell us about your life.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Give us your background.
My plan is to just derail at every turn. So I grew up in Las Vegas, Nevada, to a mom and a dad who are still married. My dad was a Baptist pastor, had been my whole life, pastored at one church for 30 some odd years and retired a couple years ago.
Oh, wow. What kind of Baptist? I'm just curious. Do you know?
Pretty laid back.
Like Southern Baptist? Or
so technically they were part
American
of the
Baptist?
So technically they were part of the Southern Baptist Convention.
Okay.
But they weren't like super Southern Baptist. They ended up dropping the word Baptist from their church name. So if that tells you anything, they were pretty laid back as far as Baptists go.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And my mom.
Gosh, that's a long time. Is he still in Vegas, your dad?
He's still in Vegas. Yeah, both of them are. Yeah.
All right.
Both of them and my brother. I have one older brother.
Well, hey, Dad, if you ever listen to this, hello.
Oh, he will.
Fellow, I'm an ordained Baptist pastor.
All right.
I grew up in a Southern Baptist home, so you're right.
And my mom was a school teacher my whole life. She went back and forth between the classroom and the music room. So she retired a few years back too.
So music was an early part of your experience in your home? It
was, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say that like my mom performed music a lot in my home, but it was, both my parents are super into music. So I was always listening to like pretty good bands from the time I remember, you know.
Like give me examples. What are pretty good bands?
Like Creedence Clearwater Revival was one of like the first bands I really got hooked on. Like Simon and Garfunkel was another, you know, big thing for me. And then like Steppenwolf and the Beatles and
some good classic
so
rock
like
stuff.
They were really into that stuff. And then like I don't know. I remember we had this like 50 songs of the 50s mix tape that I would just like put into the stereo. Like, you know, we had like the entertainment center with like the TV and the stereo over here. And I would like put that tape in the stereo and just like put headphones on and listen to this one Del Shannon song over and over and over. I was really into it.
Nice.
So
sweet. When did you start playing? What did you start playing? When did you start playing? Do you remember?
I like, so the Christmas of, I think Christmas when I was like 11 years old, my parents and I went like half and half on a drum set, which is like half and half to an 11-year-old is like probably not really half and half. But I remember I had some money saved up and I like put it in and they put it in and bought a drum set. So when I was 11, I started playing the drums.
Okay.
Yeah.
But now do you do guitar, keys, and drums?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, so I was like immediately wanted to be in a band. And so started a band when I was in 6th grade called Violent Desire. Jose and Steve, if you're listening, you know, big shout out to Jose and Steve. We got one show, Emily Smith's backyard, and our guitar player couldn't show up, so it was just me and the bass player. But anyway, so I was in band. I just wanted to be in bands. I was like, bands are cool. I want to be in like punk bands and rock bands and stuff. That was what I was into. And so I was always around a guitar, and so I would just pick it up and try to figure out how to play it.
Yeah.
And then we eventually bought this acoustic guitar for the house, and I just like quickly took it over and started like writing music.
Did you have brothers and sisters?
I have one older brother. Yeah.
Okay. Were you into sports or anything else? Acting, anything, or just mostly your band stuff?
Yeah. So I played like baseball and soccer from the time I was like 5 to about 15. And like basically when I got into high school, I was like, I don't want to do sports really anymore. I want to just play music and be in bands and stuff.
So by the time you're 15, it was bands and music.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then growing up Baptist, like were you ever in the Christian rock world or Christian worship, CCM world or anything like that? Contemporary Christian music world?
Yeah. So I was like super into being in church and like being a part of that until I was like, I don't know, probably 19 or 20.
Okay.
But I was like really into it, took it really seriously, and was like in like Christian bands, like really some like bad ones. Really not bad, but just like like identity crisis ones where like some people, I mean, let me think. This is like late 90s, early 2000s. And like a couple members really wanted to do like a rap rock thing, which was cool. I was like, at that point, I was like really into like the first Korn record. So I was like, that's cool, but like heavy stuff. But then I had started to get into this like other like hardcore, like hardcore punk kind of stuff. And I was like, so I started writing those songs. So we had this weird band that was like some pop punk, some like thrashy or more just like straight forward hardcore stuff, and then some like rap rock songs. So it's just very confusing. But
I kind of got into that rapcore, some like Evanescence.
Okay.
And, would that be considered that? Or,
I don't know. I never. So like,
what was the name
at
of
the time? Like the Christian rap rock song were like
Linkin Park. I really liked. Would they fit that genre?
Like Project 86 was a big one.
Okay.
And then POD was big at the time.
Okay. Yeah.
There was a band. POD. What's that? I said freaking POD.
Yeah, I remember POD. So, that was a Christian band, right?
Yeah. These are all Christian bands.
Oh, okay. All right. I was jumping out into the other world, but anyway.
PAX 217, right? Then there's a band called Blindside, which I still stand by. Dude, Blindside. They're actually a really good band. By those who are listening, I interviewed John Terry. So by the way, Kris is in Listener with Dan Smith and John Terry. I interviewed John Terry. John Terry was in Chariot, right? Mm-hmm. But that was more just like hardcore, right? That was like,
that wasn't rapcore,
kind of mathcore weird stuff. And I was a huge The Chariot fan, which is funny. Like my first tattoo were lyrics from The Chariot.
Oh wow!
And then like fast forward a few years later, I'm playing my first show in Kansas City with Listener, and like John Terry and Jonathan Kindler are at the show, and I'm like, oh my god, and years later, like I'm really good friend, like Jonathan Kindler and I are like running buddies and just really good friends, and then obviously John Terry and I have toured the whole world together, but years later they're like, oh yeah, you were like the the most prepared for that show, like you were the only one who seemed like to know like what you were doing in that show, which is I don't know, maybe they were just saying it to be nice, but it was pretty funny. So meeting them and then touring with The Chariot was like, and then we all became good friends who toured with Josh a bunch.
So, that's cool. That's cool. So you were definitely into the Christian rock scene.
Yeah.
And
our band name was Inadequate.
Okay.
No big deal.
All right.
Very you can take a lot from that. Very kind of a lot of shame, I feel like.
Yeah.
When you're like, we should name our band Inadequate.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. How low can you go?
Just like not good enough. Like, boy, that's going to stick with you for a while.
Yeah. Brene Brown could pipe in on that one, right? Never good enough.
Very cool.
For shame. That's her shame thing. Yeah. Anyway. Well, so when did you start? Like you said, you were into that whole world until 19.
Yeah.
So what transpired at 19 that moved you away from that world? Or
so I was like really, I found great community there. There's a lot. I think there was like a lot of kind of more problematic stuff regarding my involvement with kind of that whole church world. But I think it was definitely had something to do with the culture, but it's also just kind of how I interpreted the culture and my tendency to go black or white on things. I'm kind of like I'm much more comfortable at the end of whatever spectrum it is I am involved in. Right?
Okay.
Like if there's a pendulum, I'm uncomfortable in the middle.
Wow.
And so the way I take on, kind of like a revealed inerrant word of God is like, I'm either going to take this and run with it, or I'm just going to like totally deny it. Like there's like no way I can't like cherry pick like some like really good things from it. And so
well, then you're in trouble. I can tell.
Yeah, sure. Right. And that's also like kind of promoted within that culture. And I also, you know, I left this Baptist church that my dad was involved with and became a member of this PCA, this Presbyterian Church of America, Calvinist, Reformed. I was like, yeah, I'm totally into this. I love to know. I like to know. I like to know the truth. I like to wield the truth like a weapon and show you how you're wrong and feel comfortable with how I'm right. Right? If I can put something in a box and understand it, it makes me a lot more comfortable with it.
Interesting. Yeah.
So I joined this church, and it wasn't like the whole thing really hadn't been working for me, I think, for a while. And probably diving that deep into theology and apologetics and, you know, defending the faith and knowing what I know and everything was probably sort of, in a way, with some hindsight, a last ditch effort to like, I was grasping.
Hang on,
I was grasping
make it your own.
for something. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I was 19 or 20 and I had been what I now know is like just pretty depressed for a while. And it just wasn't working. And I remember I was, I was lying in bed and I was like saying my prayers at night. And I was like, what am I even doing? This is pointless. Like these prayers aren't going past the ceiling. None of this is real. Like just level with yourself, dude. This isn't working and it's make believe. And, so I was like, all right. It was kind of like this, like almost like the straw that broke the camel's back. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, all right, I'm like cool with this. Like, I'm good. I'm not going to do worship anymore. I'm not going to teach Bible study anymore. I'm definitely not going to go on these like really weirdly problematic mission trips. And I'm not going to do any of my small groups. Like, I'm done. I'm out. And, so I like did that. And, like, thank goodness that I shortly thereafter turned 21 and started drinking, because I think it probably saved my life, because I was so depressed. And I literally, at that point, I had like nothing, right? I didn't even have this like religion or this faith to grasp onto anymore.
So you think drinking saved your life? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah?
Yeah. Cause
explain that. Cause I don't hear that too often.
So I was just in such a dark place that like carrying on in that dark of a place with, no kind of foundation, and also having left a foundation that I had since birth and that I was growing up with and all my friends were involved with. I don't think I would have lasted. I thought I was probably pretty short for this world.
Yeah.
You know, had I not found something.
You know, that's such an interesting, because like, you know, I went through a really hard, like 2019 just, and I'd been, a pastor 40 years and led people to Jesus, all this stuff. And but then all of a sudden in 2019, it was just gone. I mean, everything felt gone. I'd lost everything. And even felt like my faith was shattered. And then that darkness of all of that was crazy. And I even felt ashamed of having done everything and lost everything.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Felt even shame about losing my faith, even to a certain degree, you know? And so people who haven't gone through a sort of for lack of a better word, a deconstruction like that, and really gone into a dark place. I mean, I've met some people who kind of intellectually go through stuff.
Yeah.
But when you go into that emotional pit and the darkness of that, like if you're feeling that depressed and dark, it's a scary place, man.
Yeah, it's not ideal for sure. That
I wouldn't wish it on anybody, man, really.
Dark night of the soul. But I think it's like, for me, I just see everything as like a path, and it was like I love my life. I think my life is really great, and I like wake up pretty much every day, and if I can like pull my head out of my ass enough, I can like realize that like the shit that I've been through, like I hate to just be like, I shouldn't be alive, but I probably like maybe shouldn't. And so like I'm living on borrowed time, and this is sort of all gravy. And so like, it just really takes a lot of the pressure off of like having to do something to know who you are. So it's all really helped develop that sense of self for me.
So take me down the drinking saved your life road.
Yeah.
Pick us up there.
For sure. So,
and how that tied into your music career.
So like, I'm a pretty big rule follower. I didn't really do much like drinking or using of drugs or anything like before I turned 21. So when I turned 21, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna drink. This is what people who are 21 do. And so I started drinking, and like the first time I like caught like a real buzz, I was like, oh, this is it. Like this makes more sense to me. This is real. Like as far as like spiritual experiences, like everything I had up to that point didn't measure up to what happened to me when I started drinking alcohol. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, cool. So I really connected with alcohol, and it did like helped me for a while.
Okay.
And so, I started drinking, and I quickly started drinking, probably a little more than I should. I was never really good at drinking. I was really never good at using drugs. I just like, I could do a lot of it, but I was never functional in like really any capacity. So I just transferred from like a community college to a university at the time, and I started drinking, and I was like, this is the best. This makes me feel like I think everybody else feels just on a daily basis. So why wouldn't I do it on a daily basis? And so I kind of started, drinking every day. And then like, I figured out like I could drink in the afternoon, like between classes and stuff. And so I just started drinking a lot. And it was great for a minute. Like, really helped me to connect with some friends outside of kind of the church. And I started to kind of actually build a different community of people that like were really amazing, great people that I didn't think could exist outside of like the church. And then I come to find out like people are all over the world are like pretty rad and just like really nice and like doing cool things. And they don't have to have this like, there was always this sense.
They don't have to be Baptist to be really cool people.
Yeah. And like have morals and like have values and stuff. So, I started drinking. I started drinking every day. And eventually I started drinking in the afternoons and in the mornings. And like, there was a point in time around when I was 22, at some point when I was 22, it didn't take long, where the alcohol really stopped kind of doing that thing for me. That window of relief kept getting smaller and smaller. Mm-hmm. And so I was drinking a lot, like, and I was starting to get some like weird physical stuff going on. Like I would essentially buy a handle of vodka and a gallon of Tampico. Do you know what Tampico is? It's like off-brand Sunny Delight.
Okay.
It's like 89 cents a gallon. And you could get like a $8.99 handle of vodka. And I would just keep those in my car, and I would just drink them. And so I wouldn't quite drink the whole handle in a day, but I would have some for the morning, for the next morning. And
dude.
So it got like kind of gnarly, but it got to the point where like I could drink a lot of vodka and kind of like my head was still telling me like how bad everything was, or I might drink like 3 or 4 beers and totally black out. So it was just really unpredictable. And so I started like using drugs. Yeah, I started taking some pills. I didn't know what they were, but they ended up being like Oxycontin, and then I got pretty strung out on those, and they cost a lot of money. So yeah, then I kind of just it was more like a decision of finances than anything, and started using heroin. So
that's what happens.
Yeah. So that's like I
was just talking to a guy last year who was one of the top baseball recruits out of high school and started doing the oxy for pain, an injury, you know, and then, you know, he just quickly got addicted, kind of wiped out his baseball career, and then couldn't afford the expensive stuff and ended up on heroin. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So, and were you still pursuing your music career while?
Oh my God, no. I like when I first had started drinking, I was still in this band. And it was like halfway Christian, I guess. Like all of the dudes were like from my church. But I was mostly just writing like stuff that I would write for Red Sweater now. Stuff about girls and being sad and stuff. And but I was just like, dude, I can't do this. I can't be in this band. Like, I don't feel right. You know, the Pendulum, like I can't be in anything that like is in any way associated with Christianity because it's not my truth. And so I have to wipe everything out, you know? It wasn't like I can still be in this band, even though I don't believe in this stuff. It was just like integrity, which is something I think like, not only did I learn from the church, but also punk rock is very like extremist in that sense. You're like punk or you're not. And here's how you tell if you're not. And you have to have integrity in these values and you have to XYZ or else you're not punk or whatever.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like similarities.
Exactly.
It's not a surprise that I'm like
you like, gravitate to something else that's very fundamentalist in a different way, right?
Yeah.
And,
I mean, I'm a vegan.
And the
like
outside the box.
I'm like a sober. Like I remember having this conversation with my friend Levi, and I was like, yeah, like I just used to be so extremist, and he's like, dude, you're like a sober vegan who like won't get a straight job. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe I'm still a little. You know, extreme, just in different ways.
Oh, I'm usually all in when I commit to something.
I know.
All right. So what happened? Yeah, because I mean, I was trying to connect this drug scene to your music career, but
yeah, dude, that's what I mean. Like, I'm so bad at like drinking and doing drugs. I can't do anything else.
So it just wiped you out.
Like the one accomplishment I had was like, I almost graduated college when I was like strung out on dope, but I didn't. And I wasn't doing any music. I like pawned almost all of my gear. Yeah, I didn't do music again until after I got sober.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. Dude, and so I guess that was like whatever, 22, 23 when I started shooting dope. And I got sober when I was 26. So I was kind of I was in and out of different, like, I don't even know if you would call them treatment. Some of them are like treatment adjacent. And then some were just like basically homeless shelters. But, I like my parents would try to get me like clean and sober. And then like, I really wanted to be, but I also continued to get loaded, which is the great sort of paradox of people with substance use disorders. Like, dude, I don't want to like, this is the hardest job I've ever had. Staying loaded is the hardest job I've ever had. And I don't want to do it anymore, but I can't not do it. So, after I got sober, I was up in Portland. I kind of just ended up in Oregon.
What helped you get, what got you sober?
Oh, okay. Dude, so I woke up one morning. And I was back living with my parents, and I walked out to smoke a cigarette in the morning, and I saw my car and my dad's truck had like was right behind it, like pinning it in. And I was like, oh, this isn't good. It's like, I'm probably going to go to rehab. Like I've seen this before. We've done this before. I know where this is going. And so I like walked back in. I like smoked my cigarette, walked back inside, and my friend Dave, who was houseless, we called him homeless Dave, but he was sleeping on the floor in my room because it was like it was December in Vegas. It was super cold that night. I was like, Dave and I were like really probably as good of friends as like two heroin addicts could be. But like, it's still like kind of comes with, there's always a catch. I was like, dude, I'll let you stay like in my room tonight if you split your last bag of dope with me. And he was like, all right, cool. So he's like on the floor. I come in, I wake up Dave. I'm like, Dave, dude, I think I'm going to rehab. And he was like, when? I was like now, probably. And so he's like, all right, cool. Well, hang in there, man. And like, goes out the window and leaves. And,
wow.
And so I like go out to face the music, and my dad drives me back to this place in Los Angeles that I had been before. It wasn't exactly a treatment center. It was sort of almost like the Salvation Army, but a lot less programming and a lot more just like have faith and you won't be a drug addict anymore. And they wouldn't let like 12-step meetings in there. There was none of that. It was just like have faith. And so I had been there before. I had done like 4 months there at one point.
What was it called? Do you mind saying the name? Or,
I don't want to say it because like
that's fine.
This particular place has made my every 4-step I've ever done. I have a lot of feelings about it. So I don't want to like badmouth it.
Okay.
But, okay. So I was there, and it did end up doing it played a part in my story. Right.
Okay.
So I go there.
But this was like a Jesus-centered recovery approach that didn't work the 12 steps.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like a celebrate recovery or anything.
Okay.
It was like legit, just like memorize enough scripture.
Yeah. Almost like, what was the stuff that David Wilkerson started across America? That kind of stuff. I forgot the name.
I don't know.
Things. Youth. Anyway, I forgot. He started a whole deal for teen recovery that was kind of like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Teen Challenge or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Something like
maybe
that.
Similar to Teen Challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, the place has done a lot of good because I know a lot of people were home planning from prison to this place.
Mm-hmm.
And so for any place to have, to take people and to house them and to feed them, it's in my line of work now, like, thanks for doing that. Mm-hmm. Could it be better? Yes. Mm-hmm. But, that's like people talk a lot of shit about like, how they can never find like secular, shelters or like, free supportive recovery housing and stuff. Mm-hmm. But it's like, hey, if you want to have a secular one, make one. There aren't any. They're all affiliated with the church because these are the only people who are going to touch, these like chronic relapsing alcoholics and drug addicts. So anyway,
yeah. So you went to this place and you got sober there?
No.
Okay.
I go to this. My dad takes me out to this place and I snuck like some Suboxone so I didn't get super sick, and my phone and a stolen credit card that I had been using to run this gas scam with back in Vegas. I snuck all that into this place, and I got in on a Friday. They locked my bag up in the office over the weekend because the office wasn't open over the weekend. And on Monday, they took me down to get my bag, and I just left. I was like, I've already done 4 months at this place. It doesn't work. I don't want to be here. This sucks. And I left. And I remember my dad had given me like $20 for some reason. He's like, I know you can't have cash in here, but just in case you need this or whatever. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to turn down free money. Mm-hmm. And so I had like $20 cash, my phone and this credit card. And I buy a pack of cigarettes, and I'm like it was very romantic. I was like sitting on Sunset Boulevard, like smoking a cigarette, like, what am I about to do? Like, I could take a Greyhound back to Vegas and then just like live with Dave, like outside and do the same old thing, continue to be strung out, whatever. I'm not tough enough to make it homeless in LA. There's just no doubt about it. I'm not that tough. And then like I had a friend up in Portland, Oregon. And I was like, It's kind of different. I could kind of see what happens there. So I use this credit card and I get on my phone and I book a flight from LAX to Portland. And
a stolen credit card.
Yeah. And so I and then I take the bus. I use the cash that I had left over from buying the cigarettes and I take the bus to LAX. And I text my friend. I was like, hey, I was like, I'll be in Portland at 9:30 if you can pick me up. And she gets the text. She's at work. She starts crying because she knows that I'm all jacked up. And one of her coworkers was like, what's going on? And she tells him, and he's like, hey, I'm in recovery myself. I'm good friends with a program manager at this outpatient clinic. If you can get him down there tomorrow, she can probably get him into a detox, because I needed a detox. I was just like I was like a IV heroin cocaine user. And so I got to PDX that night and she picked me up. She's like, I'm so mad at you. And I was like, I know, I suck. And she's like, we're going to see this woman, Kayla, tomorrow. And I was like, whatever, dude. I don't care, because I wanted to get sober. I just had no idea how to do it. So I go to this outpatient clinic and I meet this woman named Kayla, who's this like recovering heroin addict. She had like 14 years at the time. And it blew my mind because the only other heroin addicts I knew were strung out, dead, or locked up. And I was like, how did you get out of it? She was like, starts with detox. Like, she got me a bed and a detox, and she was so nice and so sweet. And she was like, have you kicked before? I was like, yeah. She's like, so what's happening? What's going to happen? And I was like, yeah. She's like, well, like there's Northwest 23rd Street in Portland. It was December, so it's all like all the trees on the side of the roads are like lit up with Christmas trees. She's like, why don't you go down to 23rd and like get a coffee, walk down the street, like enjoy yourself a little bit before you go here. I was like, all right. So yeah, so I went to this detox, and that was where like someone kind of brought a meeting in for the first time and told their story, and I identified, and I cornered them after the meeting. I was like, because they had talked about like they had drank and used like I did, but they talked about being content in their life. And I cornered them after the meeting. I was like, are you lying?
Right.
Why are you here?
Yeah.
He was like, no, man, I'm here because like this is what keeps me sober.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I started going to meetings and stuff.
Is that 2011?
That was 2009.
Okay.
Actually. And tried drinking one more time after that. I stayed sober for about a year off of just like pure fear and how bad my life had been. And, going to meetings and stuff. But I didn't, at some point, my ego was reawakened while I was sober. And I was like, this God stuff is bullshit. I was like, I'm done with this stuff. And I was shortly after drunk again. It took like 2-3 months, and wow. I was drunk again. Yeah. Thankfully, I didn't like start getting loaded, but I started drinking again, and I was like, it took me 3 days. 3 days of drinking, went back to my meetings, but I couldn't stay sober. I would go to a meeting every day. I would call a sponsor every day. I would hang out with sober people, and I would just get drunk every like 2 or 3 days, or maybe get a week or something. And I was faced with my own powerlessness regarding like substances. I was like, dude, this is not good. I 100% want to stay sober, and I keep getting drunk. Yeah. Like, this is a bad deal. And I met this dude outside of the West Portland speaker meeting. There's like a small speaker, and then there's a little break where you get to smoke a cigarette, which I really appreciated at the time. And was outside smoking, and this guy was talking to me. He's like, what are you doing? Because like in Portland at meetings, at the beginning of the meeting, they'd ask like, does anyone here have less than 30 days of continuous sobriety? And so you raise your hand every day for 30 days. But I had been raising my hand for months and months because I couldn't stay sober. So it was just like, yep, still here, still don't have it. And he was like, what's going on? I told him, and he's like, dude, I did the same thing, man. You got to you got to like do all of the program.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I can't. I don't believe in God. I can't believe in God. It's not real. He's like, oh, you don't. It's like, you don't have to believe in God. You just have to take the actions. He's like, he was like, if I were you, I wouldn't believe in God. Look how bad your life is. And I was like, okay, all right. So I started working with this guy, and I started getting some traction, and that was 2011. That's when I got sober.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you, like, how did that higher power thing work for you? Like, what emerged out of your sobriety in that regard?
Yeah. So like I had just a really good direction at that time from this guy, because he was just like, dude, you don't worry about faith. You're not like, faith could be a byproduct of this. It might not. It doesn't matter. That's not what he told me. He was like, what God is, who God is, where God is, any of those details are none of my business, and I don't really care about them. The only thing I care about is whether or not taking spiritual action can have a power in my life, can get me sober.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I can get this. He was like, dude, you don't have to, when you go to pray, just think of it as a certain set of words in a particular order that you say at a certain time of the day. He's like, you don't have to believe anything. And I was like, okay, well, I can do that. I can follow direction, and he also told me, he was like, dude, we could do the steps. And this is what he told me. And it's kind of like, it's kind of crass, but it really made sense at the time. He's like, we can do the steps, and they work, and you get sober, and that's great. Or maybe we do the steps all the way through, and they don't work, and you can go, kill yourself or whatever you were planning on doing, which is like, was right there. And I was like, this guy gets it.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah, it's prison or death a lot of times, isn't it?
Yeah. So that was kind of how I did it. That's how I approached it. I was like, this won't work. It's corny. It's stupid. And I'll try it. And, somewhere between like 6 and 8 months, the first like real kind of sort of, light bulb moment I had was like somewhere between 6 and 8 months. Like, I realized that I hadn't been thinking. I was always worried that every day I stayed sober was just a day like closer to my next drink. I never felt like it was a day further away from my last. I was just always paranoid that I was going to get drunk again, and I was never going to get this thing. And I was just going to, I don't know, live like 30 or 40 more years getting drunk every 3 days and being miserable. And, but yeah, there was like one day when I was, there was a coffee shop around the corner from my house that I would walk to this coffee shop every day, paranoid, thinking I need to have a spiritual awakening, but a spiritual awakening is not a real thing. That's a make-believe thing. So I definitely need that, but it's not real. So I'm kind of screwed. And I was just paranoid every day. I would get my coffee and I would walk back to my shitty little truck, and I'd drive to my shitty little job, and I'd just be miserable all day, but I would stay sober. And somewhere between 6 and 8 months, I got my coffee, and I was walking back, and I realized like I wasn't worried. I wasn't paranoid that I was going to get drunk. And in fact, I couldn't think of the last time that I had thought about drinking. And it blew me away because I thought about drinking every day. And I didn't know when the last time was. Like, it could have been a day ago, could have been a week ago. I don't know. I wasn't thinking of it. And so I went to my meeting that night, and I was like, you guys, this thing works. Like, I can't believe it. There's like, this thing actually works. And everyone's just like, oh, man, we've been telling you. It's just like, I couldn't. From that point on, I pursued this with much more of an open mind. And I was like, I just don't care if God is real. It has no bearing on my life, whether me like praying and meditating in the morning and in the evening and like taking these spiritual actions and making my life about others rather than myself is like pleasing to some greater being out there. And so they're making my life just less chaotic, or just making my brain less angry at me. Or if it's just like a series of chemical reactions in my brain that are making me a little more mellow and less reactive and more responsive. Like, I don't care. Some days I think one, some days I think the other. It's just,
it's interesting. I often say, you know, like, and I mean, I haven't ever said I'm an atheist or anything, but I felt like it for sure. And I was I read everything. So I've always been into science. So I've got my favorite science authors that are atheists that I've read for years, you know. And so when I went through this really dark time, it was easy for me to like think my way into that versus hang on to what had seemed like it blew up, which was my faith and my life and everything. And so, but then, you know, as I look at the world, I mean, I go, well, even if there's not a God, which I'm not saying that, but I said, even if there's not a God, what kind of person do I want to be? Yeah. And I look around, and even if there's not a God, there's things that are beautiful. I want to press into beauty. There's things that we can create in this world that are beautiful. I want to press into creativity. I don't want to be a bitter, angry, resentful person. I want to press into forgiveness and grace and love. And I want to press into, you know, recovery from not just necessarily drugs and alcohol, but people go through all kinds of things that just kind of destroy their life in one way or another. And helping people recover, you know, giving your life away and not just being narcissistic and about yourself, all that stuff. And so I just think, that's the kind of person I want to be. I want to press into these things that do exist.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know what I'm saying? It's just, I don't know. Anyway, well, cool. Well, so you've been sober since 2011. That's awesome. Yeah. Congratulations.
Thanks.
And so so there's several things I'm fascinated. We've taken a bunch of time to get to this point.
Sorry.
So, no, but you're a runner. So I was, I was doing the half mile and mile in high school. I was a sub 2 minute half miler. I was a 4:30 miler in high school. Yeah. And then I was trying to do a sub 2:30 marathon in my 20s to get into the Olympic trials, and then I blew my knee out snow skiing. But you're a vegan, you're into running, you're trying to get your marathon time down to 3 hours. Yeah. You're working at First Call, which, by the way, those of you who heard the interview I did with Emily Haig, she's the CEO of First Call, and it's a nonprofit here in Kansas City. It's been around a long time that works with families and individuals in substance use disorder and all kinds of resources there. So it's a really great organization. You're working with them. You're a vegan. You're in Listener, which is Dan Smith. And by the way, any of my long-term listeners may have listened to my interview with John Terry, who's in Listener. Yeah. And you have your own band, which is Red Sweater Lullaby.
Yeah.
Which I listened to both your albums. One came out in 2014, Pins and Needles.
Yeah.
And then your newest one came out in 2020, which is called Run Club.
Yeah.
Run Club. And I really, it's funny because I didn't know your whole recovery story. And I was listening to like Skeleton Girl. Okay. And I'm thinking, this guy seems like he's been around some addictive behavior, or people in addictive behavior. And I listened to Acne Scars, and it was almost kind of like this longing to be loved, even though you have these beautiful scars that are in your, I don't know. Anyway, I found all of that fascinating. Okay. So tell us like the highlights of what's going on in your world right now. And are you doing any future projects? Is Listener touring again? And are you writing songs? And are you doing anything with Red Sweater? Yeah. Put all of that into
put it all into 3 minutes.
No, we got more than that.
Okay. So Listeners started playing some shows again. We played a couple. We have one in Portugal fest we're doing in June, and then we're doing a festival in Illinois called Audio Feed in, oh my gosh, in the summer at some point. I can't remember when it is, but we're doing that.
You've toured the world with Listener,
We've toured the world, man.
Like over the last 10 years or something like that?
Yeah. Well, my first show with Listener was April 20th, 2012. So it's been 10 years, man. And we've done shows all over. To give you, I guess, an idea, there was one tour where I flew from Kansas City west and circumvented the globe, to come back home. I think circumvent, is that the right word? I went around.
It works for me.
I went around the world, which was the first time.
Circumnavigated.
Yeah. Like, that was like the first time Dan and I had done a full, like, all the way around, because we went and played shows in Australia and New Zealand, and then went to Thailand. And then from there I went to Europe, and then to Russia, and then to Israel, and then back to Europe.
Wow.
And back home. Yeah.
That's crazy.
That was one tour, you know, we've done, we've played all over the world, and it's been one of the.
Have you played on every continent except for Antarctica?
Man, I wish. There's okay, so I was actually explaining this to someone the other day, and it's not, I don't love it. But I feel like we basically, like, we play where, like, white people are, which I don't think is ideal. I think that is problematic, but, like, basically that, like, if you were to look at a map, we're not a colonizer band, but it's very much just very white where we've played. And I'm like, I'd love to change that. So
Northern Denmark,
dude, it's been tough. It's been that's kind of a bummer for me.
Norway.
Like, I want to play
Amsterdam.
I want to play.
Amsterdam's pretty international though, you know. But anyway,
I want to play other places. You know, I'd love to do like South America, and that's where I would really like to go next.
But if you've been Taiwan, that's
we've been to Thailand. I mean, we weren't playing there. We played Australia and New Zealand, and then we tried to do some shows in Japan. Japan has fell through a number of times for us, but we had, like, I think 2 weeks before a Europe tour started. So I was like, man, I don't want to go home for 2 weeks. That's going to be just a lot of flying. So we went to Thailand to just kick back and see stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then we went over to Europe to start the tour.
Yeah.
What else?
When did you get into running?
When did I got into running? I was always, like, trying to run on and off, but never doing a great job at it. And then my dad got super sick in 2019. In, like, August, he went in for this cancer surgery that, like, didn't go well. And then he went septic and then went into a coma. And we were actually on a tour. I was there when he had the surgery, and all went well for a period. Then I left for this tour, and then the surgery leaked and he went septic, and my brother called me and was like, yo, you should get back. And so I left this tour and flew back to Vegas, and it was, like, pretty jacked up. Like, it was a pretty heavy time, you know? And so me and my brother and my mom, we would take turns spending nights in the hospital when he was in his coma. Just to, if he woke up, so someone was there. And I had my running shoes with me. I just was never a consistent runner. And so when I would be in the hospital staying with him, I would go on these little runs. I would, like, go run a mile and come back. What's funny is I remember leaving that tour, I was, like, freaking bawling when my brother called and, like, got to this airport. And I bought a copy of Runner's World. I don't even know why. My dad used to run marathons, but I was like, I'm going to read this. I bought this copy of Runner's World. And so that I got to the hospital, I was just do these little runs and just run and run and run. And he eventually woke up out of the coma and started kind of recovering in the ICU and stuff. And I had just taken this job at First Call. So I came back to Kansas City to start this job, and just kept running from then. So I guess it's been since, like, the end of 2019. So
a
couple of years.
Nice. Nice. How many miles you try to put in a week?
Well, right now, last week I put in 4 because I just, I ran a marathon in Eugene on May 1st.
Oh, good job.
Yeah. So I'm coming off that, but usually between 40 and 50.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you do a long run each week? Like, what's your longest run typically each week? So when you're in training mode? When
I'm in training, it's usually, like, my longest will be like 20, maybe I'll do a 22 miler. Okay. But yeah, I'm trying to get to where you were.
Well, you know, I had all that speed work in high school on the half and the mile. And so then when you move to a marathon pace, you know, you're still clicking along pretty good. I was running, 540, 530 miles, that kind of thing on a marathon.
It's insane.
Not bad.
But,
at any rate.
It's amazing.
Yeah. My training pace was like 6-minute miles.
Okay.
And,
So I do a lot of easy mileage, and then I do have some speed days, whether they're at the track or just like fartleks out on the trail or something. So,
so I do cycling. I switched to cycling after I blew my knee out. So that's what I do now. And although I'm getting fat and I tore my rotator cuff in January. For those who are watching, I've got this thing, and then I had surgery a month ago, and man, if I'm not riding, I'm gaining weight because my eating is adjusted to a volume of exercise.
Yeah, if you're an endurance athlete, you're just
gone,
eating.
And I still keep eating the same. It's like God. Any rate, the vegan thing. And tell us what you do at First Call real quick, and then
So
and I want to just leave a little bit of time for like your projects that are on the burner right now.
So at First Call, so I just graduated with my master's in social work from University of Kansas. And at First Call, I work in the reentry department, which is I did case management for them for a long time, and then now I'm like taking all the referrals and the intakes for the reentry program and managing caseloads for the caseworkers and stuff. And what I do, or what that program does, it's the coolest. It helps support individuals with a history of problematic substance use who are coming out of incarceration. And the barriers to reentry into like this community, because they have a community in there, but the barriers to reentry to this community are like huge for people coming back, and they just need a lot of support, not because they are incapable, because they're like some of the most like brilliant and resilient, and they have so many strengths, but the barriers to reentry are so high that just having that kind of support, our goal is to sustain recovery and reduce recidivism. And our program has proven to do that. And it's not like rocket science or anything. Basically, if you provide support, and especially financial support and stuff for people returning to the community, they do better. It's not, we're not doing any magical thing. It's just like,
and providing that support in wise and proven ways that don't just get blown away, No, that's been an amazing thing, as I've grown to love the recovery community over the last 2.5 years that I've been in it. And how, there's just so many misconceptions about that community. People are brilliant, smart, intelligent. There's, addiction is not a respecter of persons of color or gender or economics or intelligence, or, it hits everybody. And, and there's some beautiful people. And then some of the most courageous and honest people I've ever met are in this world,
Absolutely.
So, pretty cool stuff. Well, what's going on with your music? What's happening right now with Listener and with Red Sweater Lullaby, your group?
We'll start with Listener. Listener's playing some shows, which is great. We're like, we have gotten together to write new music, and we are like working on it. We don't have any plans to like put out anything on X date or anything, but we've all gotten to a place where we support ourselves in other ways, and it's the best place, I think, to be, because like people don't like to buy music anymore, which is a whole other podcast. But since you can't, it's so hard to support yourself doing music, like supporting yourself doing something else that you love and then getting to do music also is like the best, because the pressure's off. So we're working on some stuff, but slowly, and we're going to be playing some shows, which is exciting. And as far as Red Sweater, like I put out a record in 2020, just like during the pandemic, because I had recorded and pressed all the records and like did a video with Matt and
acne scars on YouTube with
I had like all this stuff ready to go, and then the world shut down, and I was like, well, I guess I could just put this out anyway, because who cares? And So I put that out and I've like never played a show on it or anything, which is a bummer. But so hopefully I will be playing some shows on Run Club, which you can, buy on. I think I shut down my website. I'm kind of bad at being a guy in a band, but you can buy it on my Bandcamp. I think there's a link to buy the record there, or just like holler at me on Instagram or something, and I'll hook you up. But Run Club's out there. I'm consistently writing music. I was actually writing, like doing these little like requests on Instagram for a while. I was like, hey, if you just like give me a topic, I'll write like a little 30-second ditty for it. And it was really fun. Maybe I should do that again. So
it's Kris, Kris, Rochelle, ROCHELLE.
Yep.
LLE.
ROCHELLE.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's at Instagram.
Sure. Instagram, Twitter. I shut down my Facebook.
Okay.
I'm working on a LinkedIn because like I'm a professional person now.
Okay.
I guess.
Yeah.
But I thought that was like a straight business thing. And now I'm understanding that it is sort of like a social media thing, which is, I guess, I don't know.
Yeah, I've got a page and I post interviews that I do with CEOs typically.
Okay.
And but
maybe I'll post.
I can't tell who's out there.
I don't know either. I'm just hoping someone really rich is like, you're great. I want to just fund your life. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. All of us creative artists dream about, one of those people.
If I got patronage from someone like that, I would question it immediately. And then I would start to like berate myself for taking some rich person's money, and now I'm a sellout. And so I really can't win with my brain.
Yeah. We have complicated brains. Oh my. Well, that's awesome. Well, thanks for joining us at Spirituality Adventures. Thanks for sharing your story. I think, it's always inspirational to me to hear somebody who's gone through a bout with addiction and then found their way in recovery. And so thanks for your work with First Call too, because that's a great organization.
Yeah, it is.
It's really doing great work in Kansas City. Has been for a long time, but
it's like First Call is kind of weird because it's like I think people are confused about what we do because we do so many things. Mm-hmm. So if you're interested in that, just reach out, because sometimes it can just get buried. They're like, First Call, what do? They do like substance use and recovery and prevention, and I don't even know what that is. Yeah.
Well, good stuff. Well, thanks, Kris. Everybody, check out Kris's music under Red Sweater Lullaby. You can get that on, all your music platforms, Bandcamp, whatever.
Yeah.
You can go to First Call and learn more about that. I know they work with volunteers, and a lot of great work goes on there as well. And then Listener is one of Kansas City's great local bands that has toured the world, and they've been going at it for 10 years. Super talented guys. So
Listener's been going at it way longer. Yeah. I've been going at it with Listener for 10 years.
Yeah, with 10 years. Yeah. So. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for joining us at Spirituality Adventures. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. This concludes today's episode. Thanks for tuning in and listening. Remember, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Remember to like, share, or subscribe to the social media platform that you're using. And then go to our website, spiritualityadventures.com, and make a one-time donation, or you can subscribe monthly and receive our special bonus content. Thanks so much.